Welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Emma Quinn. I am an interior designer, life coach, author and speaker, and I am on a mission to empower you to overcome anxiety and live your best life. Join me each week where I'll be sharing personal stories, tips and tricks to help you achieve this. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I hope you're having a great week and thank you for joining me. So for this week's episode, I had something planned to talk about, but as it seems to be a bit of a trend with me, I changed my mind last minute because of what's been going on with me personally. So this last few weeks, I haven't really been feeling like my usual high vibe self, and to be honest, I've been having some kind of weird symptoms. So this last couple of weeks, I've just been feeling really like low energy. I was feeling really dizzy. I was having night sweats and like having like really irregular bleeding between periods. Sorry if that's TMI. And to top it all off, I had the worst bout of IBS I have ever had in my life last week. So there were a few days last week where I just could not get out of bed. I was Googling symptoms flat out. I was freaking myself out. I was like, what the fuck is going on with me? Like, am I in early menopause? Like, what is happening here? I was like, all the stuff that was showing up on Google, it was like, I was convincing myself my organs were like shutting down. I just felt like my body was falling apart. And I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but I just felt so awful. Like I couldn't, normally if I'm sick, if I have like a cold or a flu or, something like that, I, will be able to like still use my phone. I'll be able to watch TV. I'll be able to read my book or whatever. But last week, I literally could do absolutely nothing. I couldn't like look at my book. I couldn't watch anything. I even deleted the Instagram app off my phone. Just to avoid temptation of looking at it. I wasn't even really replying to texts or anything. Do you ever just feel like that where your head just feels like it's about to like explode if you like have any kind of like stimulation? So literally for a couple of days last week, all I was able to do was like lie in a dark room in complete silence. And as I said, I just wanted absolutely no stimulation because with IBS, I don't know if any of you have it or ever experienced symptoms like that, but for me, I know that stress can bring it on and make the symptoms worse. So I just felt like I needed to just completely like zone out from everything. And the strange thing is I know that it wasn't like a flu or a cold or anything like that because I didn't have any other symptoms, which made me then sort of realize that maybe this was just like exhaustion or stress or like the start of burnout. So this has kind of happened to me before, like not for a long time, but I sort of knew the signs to watch out for. So I just had this feeling like my body is trying to tell me something here, not to get too like woo-woo, but I just had this really strong feeling. My body is literally telling me that I need to slow down, which can be a real challenge for me to do. So I think we as women in particular and mums, like we glorify being busy. And I think a lot of us attach our worth and how much we can get done we attach our worth to how much we can get done in a day, and we sort of tell ourselves things like, if I'm not constantly busy all the time, that must mean I'm being lazy or a failure, or I don't deserve to relax. So I know that this is a limiting belief that I still struggle with, and something that I talk about in my book as well. So I am working with a coach at the minute, and a couple of weeks ago she asked me why I attach my worth so strongly to achievement. talk about triggering, I was like, oh, how dare you, But she was so right, like I do, and it's not something that I am proud of, but I just find it really hard not to do that. And I think that just really got me thinking, and I think it's such a good question for all of us to ask ourselves. So I just feel like it's hard for me sometimes to feel worthy if I'm not constantly being productive or like ticking things off my to-do list. And I think as moms, we can all relate to this because we can get caught up in the busyness of life, and it can be very hard to see the value we bring to the world outside of always doing. So I have a couple of little stats here for you. So over 78% of mothers report feeling guilty for taking time to rest or do something just for themselves, citing a belief that they must always be doing something productive to feel worthy. And then another stat is 93% of mothers reported feeling burnt out. So these are from a survey done by Motherly. And they're honestly not surprising to me because I know from the women and mums that I speak to, it's just become kind of the norm now. Like everyone seems to be experiencing bouts of burnout. So what did I do to manage this? So the first thing was I told my husband like how I was feeling, and that might sound obvious, but I think a lot of the times I wouldn't, if it's something that's annoying me, you don't want to be like dumping your stuff on someone else. But I was just feeling so awful. I just told him, and this really helped because I had been feeling really worried about it. I was, as I said, Googling all these symptoms and like convincing myself it was something serious, even though I know that I shouldn't be doing that. But in the moment, it can be hard to remember that. So he was amazing. He was a great support. He like picked our daughter up and stuff like that. And when I wasn't able to, and entertained her and kept her occupied around the house and all of that. So that was amazing, rather than, trying to do all that by myself as well. So I rang my doctor. I went in and had blood tests and hormone tests done. And then the next thing I did, which was very scary for me, was I cancelled pretty much everything in my diary for the next, maybe not a full week, but I'd say at least about 5 days. I was kind of taking it day by day, but I really just did the bare minimum. And this was really scary for me because I'm a busy woman. I've got shit to do, I had work deadlines, I had social media content, I had my podcast launching, but then I just kind of realized the world isn't going to fall apart, and Emma, nobody fucking cares as much about all these things as you do. And that sounds harsh because if you are running a business or you have like a high pressure job or whatever, it feels like all these things that you're so busy doing every day are the most important thing, and like they have to be done, or the world's gonna end. But like, let's get real, like nobody cares if I, post 3 posts next week instead of 5 posts on Instagram or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous, the pressure we put on ourselves. So what I realized is, people are understanding and flexible. And I think we place all this pressure on ourselves unnecessarily. And then we stress ourselves out thinking we have to live up to these impossible standards. So just doing that just gave me the breathing room to focus on resting and getting myself better. So the other thing I did was I used EFT, which if you don't know what that is, it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. So it's basically like tapping on different meridian points in your, like throughout your body. And I did that especially when I was having the really bad IBS symptoms, to kind of calm that down. I use an app called the Tapping Solution, and it's amazing because they have like any like ailment you can think of, or any issue, physical or emotional, they have it on there. So I was able to go on and do a tapping around IBS, and sort of calming down, you know, the pain and discomfort and things like that. So I'm not going to say that like instantly healed me, but it just made me feel a bit better and not stress as much about it. The next thing I did is a bit of an interesting one. I went to see a biokinesiologist. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically a practitioner who uses muscle testing to identify any imbalances in your body. So my friend has been raving about this woman for years, so I thought I would go and see her. Luckily, I got a cancellation because I think she books up like months in advance. And I just sort of thought, like, I don't know a lot about this, but I've got nothing to lose here. You know, I might as well try it out. So she identified some intolerances and recommended, you know, certain foods and supplements to support my immune system. So I'm really just starting out with this. As I said, I don't know really enough about it yet. I'm sort of just modifying my diet and I'm starting to take these new supplements. But it's going to take probably a few months before I see like proper changes. So I will keep you up to date. I'll let you know how I get on with that. And then the other thing was that I booked in for Reiki. So I used to go for Reiki a couple of years ago, and I really got a lot from it, but I haven't gone probably in a couple of years. It's been something that has kind of been on my to-do list, but of course, being so busy and everything else going on, it just has not been a priority. So I just felt like this was the time. I had just a real urge to go and get it done. So that was so lovely and relaxing. So knowing what I know about burnout and stress, I really didn't want to rush straight back into a crazy workload. So I sort of just gradually eased myself back in to work with smaller tasks. And I know it's not realistic. I know I said I cleared my calendar, but there was still like the odd little thing here and there that I was doing, but I really just tried to pare it back to the essentials. I went out for walks, I really connected with nature, and I just tried to do some light exercise and stretching. I just think it's always good to keep your body active in whatever way you can, especially if you're not feeling well. And then I just did like little meditative things around the house, like just little bits of laundry. You know, I just weirdly kind of love doing laundry, the whole process of like, you know, putting it in the washing machine, switching it over, or like hanging it up, and then it's kind of complete. It's like that satisfaction you get. Like watering plants and other little like light housework things. That mightn't be for everyone. Like if you are not someone that enjoys that, then don't do that if you're not feeling well. But as I say, it was all very like light things. I wasn't, you know, like scrubbing the toilets or anything like that. So yeah, these are the things that I did to kind of make me feel better and like back to myself. And of course, these are not like medical advice. They're all just things that kind of worked for me. And of course, consult your doctor if you're having any like unusual symptoms. So lessons that I learned from this experience. So I am feeling a lot better now, thank God. But anytime something like this happens, I always like to journal about it. I'm that annoying person that I'm like, just whip out my journal and, you know, try and ask myself like what this is trying to teach me. So like American. But I do, and like this really works. So if you haven't tried doing this, I would highly recommend it. So I always like to journal about it and ask myself, like, what is the lesson here and how can I learn from this and maybe prevent this from happening again, or, you know, reduce the impact that it might have if it did happen again. So the first thing is that I realized my body was in need of a break, and it went to great lengths to tell me that. So going forward, I really do think I am gonna try my best to take a slower approach to life. Of course, I'm still going to get my work done, you know, and I think something that I want to mention here as well is that the reason I think I struggled so much with this is because I like, I love what I do. I love my job, and I'm loving doing this podcast now. Like, I really get so much enjoyment from it, and I find so much passion in what I'm doing. Like, of course, there's times when it's stressful, but overall, I love working. But then the problem with that is that, you know, you can kind of convince yourself that you are able to take on more than you can, and you're like, oh, I can push myself, you know. You're like, I've been listening to all these like motivational like TED Talks and all, and I'm like, I'm gonna push myself to like achieve more and do more, achieve all these things on my vision board. So I feel like it's just, I don't want to lose that, because I have been able to achieve some amazing things from that energy, but I also think I need to really balance it out and listen to my body if it is asking me for a break, and be more, you know, proactive about this in the future. So not to just keep going like crazy without taking a break. And, you know, just like still get my work done, but just try to be more relaxed about it. And I really want to make time for the things like Reiki and some of those other things that I talked about, that I realize actually do really fill my cup up and leave me feeling more energized after I've done them. So I think the other thing is that we all need to reparent ourselves sometimes. So when you think about, if you have kids, like, we tell them, you know, you have to eat well, you have to get enough sleep, you have to get outside, you know, limit your screen time. But how often do we follow this advice for ourselves? If you're like me, you know, probably not very often. So when I felt the urge to dive back into being busy with work, which actually happened to me last night, I was like, oh, I'm feeling better now, you know, I can just go back to like operating at 100 miles an hour. I literally spoke to myself like a child, and I was like, no, Emma, you have to take it easy. So a new affirmation I have is, I am my second daughter, which sounds funny, but I think that's quite a comforting thing to say to yourself, because even if you feel like you maybe don't have anyone else around looking out for you, you always have yourself. So the next time I want to push myself beyond my limits, I'm going to ask myself what I would tell my daughter, and then I'm going to take that advice for myself. Hear me saying all this now, so I need you to like hold me accountable for this, so I don't slip back into my workaholic tendencies. But I'm trying, people, okay? I'm trying to get better. This whole experience led me to be, you know, more vulnerable and open up to family and friends, and tell them, you know, how worried I was about this, and to ask for their advice. And this is something I want to try and do more, because a lot of the time I feel like I have to figure everything out by myself. You know, I don't want to be a burden on others, but a lot of the time I think we forget how willing people are to help us, and then we in turn can support them when they're going through a tough time. So this is great for strengthening connections and relationships. And this has just made, I know this is going to sound so dramatic, but honestly, I think because I am usually I feel like I'm such a healthy, you know, fit person, like I don't get sick that often, you know, so it really, like, it was so out of the ordinary for me. So it's really made me just so grateful for my health and the simple things in life, like having the energy to make my breakfast in the morning, for having, you know, some amazing supportive people around me, and being able to play with my daughter. Like the little things we take for granted every day. I think when you're feeling burnt out or sick or not yourself, like you really realize like, oh my God, I am so lucky that I get to do these things every day in my life, you know. And it's not always about the huge big achievements or the things, you know, that look impressive, you know, to the outside world. It's about the little things. Hear me, you think I was dying like on my deathbed. I'm so grateful to my health, you know. So dramatic. It also just makes me realize how we actually need contrast in life. So as I said there, I would usually consider myself quite healthy and fit and all that, and luckily wouldn't really experience health issues that often. But what this has taught me is if things were just plain sailing all the time, if things were just great, would we really appreciate everything we have as much? Like, I am actually grateful that I had that experience last week, because it really totally made me reassess, my lifestyle and my priorities and the way I had been living my life. It's not to say that I am, making dramatic changes, but just even like those little tweaks that I talked about there, the new little things that I want to implement, that wouldn't have come about had I not, felt like that last week. So some tips here for dealing with burnout if this is something that you're experiencing. So the first thing is to drop the do it all mentality. So try to let go of the idea that your worth is tied to productivity, like I mentioned. So just ask yourself, what would happen if I didn't do this? So more often than not, it's okay to let something go. The second thing is to ask for help and accept it. So whether it's your partner, friend, family member, or even maybe like a babysitter, we need to understand that delegating isn't a weakness, it's actually wisdom. I think a lot of the time we feel like we have to do everything, but we need to realize, like, if we're raising kids, we're working, we're running a household, like, this takes a lot of energy and we need help to do it, As strong as we are, I think asking for help can be so powerful. The next thing is to create space for mental rest. So you don't have to book a spa day, although that's great too if you can, but just try little smaller things. Even 5 minutes of deep breathing can help, going for a walk by yourself, or just putting your phone down while you're drinking your morning coffee. So it's about sort of interrupting that overwhelm. And all these things that I'm talking about, I know they're very basic, but like me, like, I know all this stuff, like, I've written a bloody book about it, but I think we can get caught up so much in the busyness of life that we forget these basic things, and then it takes burnout or an illness or something like that for us to be like, oh God, I actually wasn't paying attention to the basics. So one other thing you can do that I love is to name what you're feeling. So burnout isn't just tired, it's emotional, it's mental, and like I was having like physical depletion as well. So say it out loud. So journaling or even venting to a friend can help bring you clarity and release. Simplify your schedule as much as you can. I know it's not easy, and if you're working like a 9 to 5 for another company or something like that, I know you feel like, because I did that for years as well, you feel like you don't want to let people down, but sometimes the best thing you can do for everyone is to just ring in sick, like, there's no shame in that. So if your calendar makes you want to cry, something needs to go. So just like I did, try if you can to prioritize what's essential and protect any white space you have. You might be like me, like, white space, what do you mean? Like, my calendar's full, like, what do you mean? But really, like, it's only when you clear those things out that you're going to have time to actually recover and to gradually, like, get your strength back. And you know what, your sanity really depends on it. So get back to basics, like I mentioned. So look at your sleep, your hydration, your food, your movement. So when those are off, everything just kind of feels heavier. You don't have to overhaul your whole life. Just choose one area even and gently improve it gradually. And finally, please just be kind to yourself. The voice in your head saying you should be doing more, I think a lot of the time we as women think, oh, that's my intuition, but it's not. It's actually your inner critic. So replace things like, I'm not doing enough, with, I am actually doing my best today, and that's enough. So it was just a little short and sweet one for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it helpful. If you've ever experienced burnout, or maybe you're going through it at the minute, reach out and send me a message, and just know that you're not alone and things will get better. connect with me on Instagram. I'm at emmaquinn.design, so come and say hi. I've reinstalled the app on my phone, by the way, don't worry. I'm just trying not to, spend as much time on it. But don't worry, I haven't totally gone off the grid. If you're interested in grabbing a copy of my book, I will leave the link down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you could rate, review and subscribe so others can find it, or share it with a friend who you think might benefit from it. So thank you for listening. Now go out there and live your best life by design. Bye everyone.